It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's a Monday morning, the start of a brand new week, and it's so good to be in your company. Thanks for joining us. Now, of course, this weekend, Formula One returned from the summer break as Team Ferrari claimed their first win since last year, October. Wow. 21-year-old Charles Leclerc, of course, winning his maiden race, and here to talk us through all of the epic battles and overtakes that took place this weekend. Please welcome motoring journalist Charlen Raymond. Good to have you here, and welcome to the show.
Guys.
Welcome,
nice being
my
here.
friend.
Thank you
So
for
you're racing in studio,
Yeah, man.
What else can I do, eh? What else can
Exactly, you're a petrol head, bud. So many lessons learned. First of all, how would you say, do we say Charles Leclerc or Charles Leclerc?
Well, I think it's open for discussion. Whichever tickles your fantasy, Charles Leclerc.
You just got to say it with a bit of...
Yeah, just with a bit of French
Je ne sais
flair.
quoi.
Yeah.
Je ne sais quoi. So we learned also that maybe Sebastian Vettel is cursed. We learned a lot of things, but take nothing away from a brilliant drive from an incredible young driver. But can we start first with heartbreaking, kind of terrifying news, in fact, when we look at the nature of the crash itself, but F2 French driver Antoine Hubert passing away in a shock, terrible incident.
That was really, really heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
And if you think, he was only 22 years old. And on the second lap, it happened on Saturday.
Yeah.
In that race, and when it happened, it was you just heard the crash and you just saw everything happening, and suddenly the races came to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And it is the second death of a driver succumbing to injuries sustained on track since 1994. A few years ago, Jules Bianchi, he passed away as well after succumbing to injuries sustained
And
at
he was
the
actually a friend of Charles Leclerc. They trained and grew up together in that space.
And also what's really scary or sad is that a lot of these guys, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon, they all drove against and with
They've grown up.
Antoine. So it's their peer.
Yeah, and that kind of seemed to mark the proceedings of the then ensuing Formula One, because obviously this was in Formula 2.
Yes.
And I mean, you had the family of Antoine Hubert, his mother and brother, who bravely attended the respects that were paid to him before the start of the actual Grand Prix in Belgium. So we send our condolences and our heartfelt prayers to them in this time. It must be an extraordinarily difficult time. But then, the race then continued thereafter, and like we said, an extraordinary day for Team Ferrari, who had the 1-2 start.
So
and
what happened to Vettel
Hamilton
during the race, and how did he...
Well, I think what happened to Vettel was that he just couldn't get his car to perform. In fact, the entire weekend, the only competitive period over the weekend was in free practice 1, when he ended the session on top. But in the race, Charles Leclerc was totally dominating him. He was all over everyone. Nobody could stop him. And he led the race from the start, even though he fell back a bit during the pit stops. But when he came back, no one could stop him. Maybe Hamilton could have, if there was 1 or 2 laps extra in the race. But Charles Leclerc really showed some maturity, and he showed that he can one day lead Ferrari when Vettel should maybe step out of the game at the end of 2020.
Well, I mean, Ferrari are going to be forced into a situation where they can no longer force the issue of Vettel being the A driver anymore. But really emotional scenes as well for Ferrari. You could see how much it meant to the Ferrari team, and plenty of tears, in fact, after the fact. I think obviously in the light of what had happened, with the terrible accident, but quite an emotional thing.
What about Max? Can we just talk about Max
the,
a little bit?
The whole grandstand was orange.
That. Yeah, especially the qualifiers. you felt like it was Max racing on his home turf.
It was Max Verstappen Appreciation Day.
Max Verstappen in the race once again got tangled up with a Ferrari driver, even though Kimi Räikkönen is now with Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo is the B team of
Ferrari.
And a few years ago...
The Italian connection,
Yes, and a few years ago, Verstappen drove into Vettel. He drove into Räikkönen. And now again, it's almost like first turn on at the Belgian Grand Prix. He just can't stay away from either Vettel or Räikkönen, and it happened again.
And what do you think happened? Because I was listening to some of the intercom communications between the team and himself, and he was saying that the driver, Raikkonen, took the turn too tight. And the commentators were saying, but he has right of way, and he's not necessarily looking at this turn. Exactly. Does that show lack of maturity? That's what I'm trying to find out.
I don't think it was a lack of maturity, but rather making up for a bad start. Because he immediately fell back, and guys were overtaking him, and he went for it. And because and because you want to make up for a lost position, he had tunnel vision. And that's all he needed to do. I need to get my position back. And
that ended his race very prematurely in the first lap. That was absolutely terrible. And so much pressure on him as well. It's not pleasing the team.
And we could have also seen another nasty accident with Raikkonen, because when Verstappen drove into him, his right rear wheel touched Verstappen's left front, and his car flipped. Almost flipped over. And that could have also been another nasty accident.
Absolutely. When you see the flip, when you see that transferal of energy, that's where it becomes truly hectic. Not the best weekend for McLaren as well, but let's take nothing away from a superb drive from clearly an unbelievably talented young driver who I think has just started to create his legacy, Charles Leclerc, winning the Belgian Grand Prix.
Thanks, Charlen. Much appreciated.
Thanks, guys.
Nice, buddy. Nice.
Appreciate it, man.